Hello everyone, welcome back to the Book Brood.
Today we're going to be bringing you our second half of April through May wrap-up.
Yeah, if you have been watching our videos, you will have noticed that we kind of fell off the filming schedule about a month ago, and most of that was because we did a massive cross-country move, and so now we're just kind of trying to film for what we read.
Yeah, just catch everyone back up on where we're at in our read.
I got into a graphic novel manga weekend. I think it was a weekend. And the first thing I read was To Your Eternity by Yoshitoki Oima. And this was a bizarre manga about an alien who is trying to come to terms with its self-identity. I don't know, it's trying to come into consciousness, I guess. It's trying to understand what's going on. So the first half of the book was great, and this alien was in the body of a wolf, and there was this really tragic story of this boy who was dying, and I loved that first half. The second half was weird because it totally jumps, and it's in this new location about this girl who's about to be sacrificed to a volcano god, and I didn't like that so much, but it was weird, and that's what I needed.
That's a current anime that's running. I haven't...
Is it?
Yeah, I haven't watched it at all. Thank you for giving me that glimpse.
Yeah, of course.
The first thing I read was Crocs Return. This is Bitten Point Volume 1.
I think we already talked about this one.
By Eve Langlis. Yes, we did talk about this in a challenge that we did for Veda in April, so
okay.
Won't spend too much time on that. It's a shifter romance.
We read that together as a challenge. That was fun. So we'll link that down below.
Yes, absolutely. The next thing I read was the Wallflower Wager. This is the third book in Tessa Dare's Girl Meets Duke series. So this one follows Penelope of the girls group or ladies group, excuse me. That was uncalled for there, wasn't it? The group of ladies in this series, and it's her turn to find love, and it comes in the form of the Duke of Ruin, who is the man who buys the house next to hers and plans to sell it for a profit, but part of that plan has to do with making sure that Penelope is marriageable material, because she's a lady of very much wealth and she's unmarried, so buying the house next to her obviously would drive the price of this house up so high to anyone who was trying to climb society's ladder. But Penelope also takes on any lost cause or lost soul that comes her way, and the Duke of Ruin is obviously a very lost soul, and he is in need of her healing touch. I hate
them so much. They're so triggering. The man who's trying to pimp her out, she's like,
pimp her.
She's like, oh, he's so sad. I need to, like, love him so he will become more of, like, a better person.
He is a better person. He's just hiding behind a very hard shell that's been built up throughout his life of hardship.
We do not need to be encouraging this toxic idea that women need to fix men. I'm not here for it. Nope. Okay. No. The next thing I read was Cluster by Ed Bryson, and this was a fantastic comic book. I have been missing military sci-fi in my repertoire just because I got kind of burnt out with the whole glorifying warfare aspect of military sci-fi, but I really like the camaraderie and the working together, and it's very clear who the bad guy is and who the good guys are, and like the whole dynamic like that. So this was actually perfect because this was a story about prisoners who are sent to another planet that is in the process of being terraformed, and they have to serve their sentence there. But there are aliens who live there, and the prison system the guards, the people who run the prison, are not communicating with the prisoners or the people back on Earth who are sending the prisoners to them. And you figure out that the prisoners are dying of cancer, and the prison company knows this, but like it's not worth it to them because they're getting free labor to fight off the aliens. So it's a whole, like, prisoners need to revolt against the system, kind of, and they team up with the aliens and they work together. So it really gave me a lot of those military sci-fi vibes without glorifying warfare.
Yeah, much better setting for exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
The next thing I read is This Girl for Real, Volume 1. This is by Tsutomu Mitsuki, and this is a lighthearted romance story about a guy who finds a drunk woman passed out the side of the river as he's going home one day, and as fate has it, she's actually the new assistant that he's going to be working with, and she's a drunk, and it makes for awkward situations. So it's just kind of an awkward situation comedy.
Oh, this is a comedy?
Yes, and there's romantic elements involved in it. So,
okay. Was this a manga?
It's a manga, okay. Yeah. So it's pure silliness, but it was good for a fluff read.
Okay. The next thing I read was Zoo, the graphic novel by James Patterson. And I've never read James Patterson before, but I think that this was a pretty decent way of telling the story, because the premise is all of the animals on Earth start attacking humans, and the humans are trying to figure out what's going on. And so visually, like, being able to see the attack scenes of, like, the lions attacking and the bears attacking, like, all this sort of stuff was pretty cool. The story itself, it wasn't believable, you know? Like, the whole, when you figure out what it is that's causing this, I was just like, okay, like, you didn't have to tell us that you figured it out. You didn't have to make that up. You could have just left it a mystery and it would have been just as fine. But it was okay. I enjoyed the afternoon reading it.
Good. The next thing I read was The Battle of the Labyrinth, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, book number 4 by Rick Riordan. This is the 4th book in the series. The kids and I enjoyed the heck out of this. We're still reading the 5th book, though it got returned to the e-library, and so we've got to wait for our hold to come back on that, but definitely just as exciting. The stakes just keep going up on this, and it's no wonder these books are so popular. So go out and read them if you haven't.
Yeah, I heard a chapter or 2 in the car when you guys were working on that one. It makes sense why it's so popular.
Yeah.
You just need to know what's going to happen. The next thing I read was also reading to the children, and that is Protector of the Small, Book 1, First Test by Tamora Pierce. And this is book 1 in a quartet, The Protector of the Small. We really liked this one. This is getting to know Kelladry, and she is the second female knight, but the first one who starts her training out as a woman, like as a girl. The other one had to pretend to be a boy the whole time, Alana. So, yeah, we've been really enjoying these. We've read several of them over the last year or 2 over quarantine, and I hope to finish Kelladry's quartet soon.
Yes. Yeah. The next thing I read was Protecting His Witness, Heartland Heroes number 2 by Julianne Lindsay. So this one as well was a read for the Who Picked This Book Club. I'll leave the link down below for links to that club and to the live show that we did about this one. But it's a Julianne Lindsay. It's a cozy mystery. It had to do with a secret baby and witness protection. So it was just fabulous.
Okay, so the next few things that we read collectively was for the Half-a-Weenathon, and we made a bunch of videos during that time. So we read Saga of the Swamp Thing, Lock and Key,
yes,
Volume 1, and Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Lafanu. It actually predates Dracula, and it's a female vampire story. It's very short, and watched the adaptation, which was great, and we will link all of those videos for Halloween-a-thon down below.
The next thing I read was To Have and To Hoax by Martha Waters. This is a satirical Regency romance. Its premise is fine enough. So it's this married couple that they've just kind of grown apart and they live a polite but separate life together. As he falls off his horse, she thinks he's unconscious and won't be roused, so she's on his way to see him, you know, remembering feelings that she had for him, and she's so worried, and halfway to where she thinks he is, she finds him in a pub. Finds out, oh yeah, well, you know, he came around eventually and we just didn't let you know, we didn't think it was a big deal, blah, 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 you know, and so she decides then that she's going to fake having consumption to try and show him what it's like. And this book just goes back and forth of this couple trying to get at each other and just not being honest with themselves or their significant other. And I honestly, like, one of them should have died, or like they should have gotten divorced, and that would have made a better book. In this one, like, this wasn't endearing at all.
So that book reminds me of another book you read where the two love interests or whatever kept playing tricks on each other and like kidnapping each other and stuff. Every time you talk about
that one was a contemporary, but yeah, that one was that I was not endeared to either of those
that must
characters.
Be a trope,
and it was
then.
It's the, what do they call it? The bully trope or something. I guess this kind of could be a bully trope, but
the next thing I read was The Screaming Staircase by Jonathan Stroud, which is Lockwood & Co. #1, which is a middle grade series that I've been hearing so many great things about. And I thought it was okay. I thought it was properly scary in parts, which was awesome. It's a very much like a Sherlock and Holmes sort of a vibe, but they're children. And there's a third wheel there, which they just kind of gang up on him the entire time, and they're just constantly, like, complaining about how fat and lazy he is the entire time, which is, he's the comedic relief. But in 2021, we don't need this anymore. Like, let's evolve, okay? It was okay, and I started the sequel and DNF'd it. It's not a series for me. At least now I know what everyone's talking about.
There you go. Right on. The next thing I read was Call Me Maybe by Cara Bastone. This was an Audible original, and this one was a lot of fun. So this is a woman who's starting up it's like this personalized gift service business that if you don't know an idea of what to get someone for their birthday or special occasion or something, she'll do it for you. She'll figure it, she'll learn about them and figure it out and get them something special. But she's about to launch her website, or she's promised a lot of people she's going to launch her website on a specific day, but that day's coming up and her website is just a complete wreck. And so she's calling customer support and she's on hold with them forever, and she's on the highway when she finally gets on with someone, and she pulls off and gets, they work through all these problems to the point where her car dies because she was charging her phone, she was charging her laptop during the hours of talking to this guy. So he feels totally bad that he took up all this time and made her car break down. And so he calls a tow truck for her and stays on the line with her the whole time to make sure she gets home and everything. And the problem's still not solved. And so they have to keep talking back and forth, trying to solve this problem. But also they're getting personal and talking about personal stuff and realize they really like each other. And it's super cute. It's so cute.
That is cute. Yeah. Not at all related, but I guess it's sort of also a trope in romance. See, I don't read romance, but I get all of my information through you. But I did read Red, White, and Royal Blue, and there was a sort of like back and forth texting conversation where they started to trust each other more and more with little bits of information and like getting to know each other via email and texting and stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's fun. It's got to be fun to write too.
Yeah.
Right, in that format and get, write those characters to discover each other like that.
Mm-hmm. We made a cross-country road trip, and during that crazy weekend, I listened to 2 audiobooks with my kids in the car. So the first one was a kid's book, and that was Unusual Chickens for the Exceptional Poultry Farmer by Kelly Jones. And this was a cute middle grade story about this family who inherit a vineyard / farm. The kid finds a random chicken and starts writing to the chicken company and being like, I think this is one of your unusual chickens. It's acting very unusual. And, she learns more about chicken management through the correspondence. These chickens have magical powers, and it was adorable, and it touched on some social themes of, like, racism. The family is Hispanic in a rural area that doesn't have a lot of Hispanic people in it, and so there is some prejudice there, and yeah, it was good.
The next thing I read was Broken Dawn by Diane Duvall. This is Immortal Guardians, book number 10. And it's getting a little old at this point because the structure's too similar, and the conversations that these immortals have to their mortal love interests are all the same. That's basically you like cut and paste, and that's like at least a quarter of the book is the discovery portion of the world coming out and re-explaining everything. And yeah, and there was barely any mention of this immortal character in the previous books. So there was nothing to even like lead up to excitement of like, oh, I want him to get his story or anything like that. Yeah.
So it could have been more of a jumping off point for a new series or a new arc instead of trying to tack on to the old stuff.
I hope so, because I don't know what she's thinking of doing, because the Lasarin was the most recent book before this one, or the Lasarin and this one are the 2 most recent books. So, and they happen kind of parallel, but in the Lasarin, that's having to do with the aliens. So that's
what I thought you were talking about.
They went and took off, and they went back to Lasara. This one's still happening in the Earth sphere and everything like that.
Okay.
But it didn't really seem like it was setting up anything larger, and the Lasarin really didn't seem like it was setting up really much anything larger, unless it was just on the space side.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
The other book we listened to in the car on the road trip was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Goodreads is still counting how many times I've read this, and I think I'm up to 6 now. It's crazy. But I find it very soothing, the narrator. I know you hate the narrator, but I like this story. It was something I could put on in the car, and it was okay if the kids overheard it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. I enjoy it.
The next thing I read was Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is the 3rd or 4th time I've read Persuasion. So I've already read Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, and Persuasion was the 3rd of Austen's works that I reread this year. So Anne Elliot, Captain Wentworth, like, you just can't go wrong there. This is a close number 2 to best Austen book.
Wow.
Like it's really close. Just especially with the amount of rereads I'm doing on them. Oh, and there's a Netflix. Is it a Netflix adaptation that's coming out for it soon? So that's exciting.
Oh.
Talking road trip time. We have 2 cars, by the way. So it was both of us driving the entire distance.
Yep.
And so I was mostly by myself in the truck that was packed to the gills with everything.
Cats.
Yes, cats. And so I got to listen to Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. What what better to keep you company on a long road trip than Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. So obviously, great read there. Just amazing.
Okay, the next thing that we both read was A Study in Scarlet Women by Sherry Thomas, and we read this for the Who Picked This Book book club. And so we'll link the live show and everything. How did you like this one?
I love this book. I think it's great. One thing on the reread and with talking with the live show and everything about it is it's not the narrative at all that's to love about this book. Like, it's not the plot of the mystery or anything in this one. It is just following Charlotte Holmes and just watching her as she goes about her life, trying to navigate it and become successful and just do what she's called to do.
Yeah. I feel like I should do a review for this book. I feel like this book was trying to do too much and it got confusing and we just forget about the mystery element and the crime and like solving everything, because you are also being introduced to the whole world, the society, all of the characters, and it's dual narration, which I hated. I hated the dual narration because I did not care about the inspector, and you'd have these long chapters of the mystery, right? You're trying to solve the crime. And I was like, okay, but I don't care about the crime. Like, I want to know what's going to happen to our main characters. Like, give me more of that. But yeah, I'm going to do a review of that one. Let's do that.
Yeah.
The next few things that I read, I talked a lot about in my vlogs over the last few weeks, but I'm going to go through them real quick right here. Sin Eater by Megan Campisi. This was fantastic, very Handmaid's Tale-esque, but talks a lot about religion and guilt and sin and class, more so than reproductive women's rights. This was really good. And then I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which was so good. Oh my god, if you want to see me gush about this book. Yeah, this was like Catherine House mixed with Roanoke Girls. It was dark and creepy, like a nightmare, like a sleepwalking nightmare vibe. Very, very confusing narration where you're not sure what's real and what's not. And the first 3/4 of this book were perfect. It fell apart a little bit for me personally at the end, but this was so good. I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And then the last thing I read was Behind the Throne by K.B. Wagers. And again, I talk about this in my vlogs, but I was very hesitant going in. I didn't like the first quarter of the book, but then it won me over towards the end. And I loved this first book in this sci-fi series. And I am currently reading the sequel. So,
which you're loving?
I'm not loving, but I'm trying to remember that I did not like the first quarter. So push through the first quarter, and then hopefully it'll come around for me. So.
All right, so that's a catch-up wrap-up, if you will, back all the way up to June of 2021. And I don't think we're going to be doing a halfway wrap-up for June because we just haven't read that much. I've read 2 things so far.
I've only read 1. Things have been very busy.
Yeah.
Very busy.
All right, so we will see you in the next video, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.